So Yulia asked me on Instagram, hey, what about this H in the question words? Are we supposed to say it or not? And someone else asked me this same thing in office hours because they noticed it in some movies. So I figured you might want to know too, because it's not just in the movies. For example, you can hear this H when you listen to one of my favorite folk singers, Johnny Cash. I say what, but he says what and where and when and why. So I was thinking, I wonder if it has something to do with where he lived, or the times it was, or maybe something else. Because we usually speak like the people we spend the most time around, family, friends, and even the media we consume. And we want to fit in. So accents end up reflecting a certain point in time or place and personal experiences. But also remember that language changes. So if you feel lost in Gen Alpha speak, well, welcome to the club, because accents can be generational. So my grandmother, who was a bit older than Johnny Cash, also used to pronounce the H's in her WH words. And I always thought she sounded like Katharine Hepburn in the old black and white movies we used to watch together. And it's funny because Katharine Hepburn said whiskey just like Johnny Cash, even though I'm sure their friend groups were probably very different. But that was the popular pronunciation at the time. Hold on, are there any other examples of movies or series or songs that you've heard where the H's are aspirated in question words? Or maybe you can think of some other old-timey sounding pronunciation and write them down in the comments. And if you've seen any of those films from about the 1930s to the 1960s, you've probably heard the transatlantic or mid-Atlantic accent, which, or should I say which, contained elements of American and British pronunciation features. So there's that vestigial British influence on it, which, not which, is only left at the spelling to confuse you. And it makes sense that you wouldn't know these things just by looking at the words. Because even when people look up the pronunciation in the dictionary, they might see more than one option. And some dictionaries, like Cambridge Dictionary, do clearly show US versus UK pronunciation differences. But sometimes when someone is in a session with me and they say a certain pronunciation, which is totally in the dictionary, but not the most common way to pronounce it, people find it helpful to know that it's not wrong to say it that way, but it just sounds like I'm talking to my grandma, or it sounds like you're from a certain area of the US, or some other little detail like that. And another great resource is Youglish, if you suspect the difference in pronunciation might be a US, a UK, or an even Australian difference. And you can hear authentic samples directly from YouTube. Because like Yulia, how are you supposed to know all these little details that you were never even taught? And honestly, this H thing in WH questions, it's not really that big of a deal. But if you have a lot of little pronunciation things sticking out when you speak, you might not know how you sound to the listener. Because we do get an impression of age and place and time, and we make a bunch of other inferences based on how someone speaks. And let's say you want to take control of your pronunciation. The best place to start is to pay attention to your vowels. Because the good news is that you can choose how you speak. And I noticed that most people have been making the same mistakes on the same basic words for years. Like when people say what, they often say what, and their jaw is just too open, what, instead of what. So I developed my 365 accent training to help you review and stop saying pronunciation mistakes in the words that you are using every day, once and for all. But instead of making a course, because we all know nobody finishes courses, I divided it up into a daily tiny email message so that you can improve every day super easily with no stress. So click on the link in the description to start fixing your errors today. And if Yulia's question about WH question words has helped you, check out this next one about what you should do when dictionaries use different symbols to mean the same sound. And in the meantime, we'll see each other inside the community.